It happened in an instant. Just moments after the judge pronounced the sentence, the atmosphere inside the courtroom transformed from tense silence to utter chaos. Diddy stood frozen as the words, "Life in prison, no parole," echoed through the chamber. His eyes were vacant, his complexion pale, and before anyone could reach him, he collapsed right at the defendant's stand. A loud gasp erupted, and courtroom security immediately rushed to his side. A flurry of paramedics followed, pushing through reporters and court officials to check his vitals. The world outside still didn't know what had just transpired, but inside that room, time stood still. The weight of the verdict crushed the man once considered untouchable. The judge banged his gavel, calling for order, but no one heard him. The reality had just set in. Diddy, one of hip-hop's most powerful moguls, had not only lost his freedom, but possibly his life. Lawyers yelled instructions, and the gallery broke out into screams. Diddy's body lay motionless as paramedics administered CPR. His head had smacked the wood paneling near the bench, leaving a visible mark. He didn't flinch. For 30 seconds, the room held its collective breath, wondering if it had just witnessed the final chapter of a music legend. Outside, news broke instantly. Social media flooded with alerts. 1 minute ago, Diddy dies in court. It wasn't confirmed yet, but the panic was real. The silence inside the room had become more deafening than any headline. Gasps turned into screams as his family and team rushed toward him. Delilah and Jessie, Diddy's twin daughters, immediately burst into tears, their cries piercing through the chaos. His mother, Janice, stood trembling before collapsing back into her seat, unable to process the scene before her. Security blocked others from rushing in while medical staff frantically worked to stabilize Diddy. Oxygen masks were brought out. Defibrillators were powered up. The gallery erupted in a mix of horror, grief, and disbelief. A bailiff yelled for order, his voice cracking. Diddy's attorneys stood frozen, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Across the courtroom, reporters stared, some shaking their heads, others furiously scribbling notes. Paramedics rolled Diddy's limp body onto a stretcher. One of them whispered to a colleague that he had no pulse, but the other responded, "Not yet. Keep going." Cameras outside were rolling as the courthouse doors burst open and Diddy was wheeled out, lifeless, tubes and wires attached to his body. Screams echoed from onlookers. Someone fainted. The news vans scrambled to reposition. Moments later, the judge returned and declared an emergency recess. Inside the courtroom, family members wept, some leaning on each other, others staring into space. Diddy's youngest daughter wailed so loudly she had to be escorted out. His lawyer, Brian Steele, slammed his fist on the table, demanding answers. Was Diddy dead? Was this how it ended? In the hallway, his longtime assistant collapsed against the wall, sobbing uncontrollably. "He couldn't take it," she muttered. "He really couldn't take it." Word spread fast. America's music king had fallen. The collapse came after a trial that had gripped the nation. For 10 straight days, prosecutors had laid out an exhaustive case. They brought forward dozens of exhibits, each more disturbing than the last. Text messages, video clips, financial transactions, anonymous tips, all woven together to paint a damning portrait of a man who had allegedly abused power, manipulated women, and run a criminal network behind the curtain of celebrity. But the most chilling moment came when Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former girlfriend, took the stand. Her voice trembled at first, but soon turned into steady resolve as she described what she endured during the so-called freak-offs, wild, controlled parties filled with drugs, cameras, and coercion. Footage recovered from Diddy's own hard drives, decrypted by FBI forensic teams, matched her descriptions perfectly. Hidden cameras installed behind two-way mirrors. Encrypted messages discussing party logistics. A handwritten note instructing assistants to schedule silence training. One message, dated July 2017, read plainly, "Clean up room 603 before first light." No prints. That message alone shifted the courtroom's mood. It was no longer a trial, it was an unmasking. 11 witnesses in total took the stand, including former bodyguards, house staff, and even a logistics coordinator who once managed Diddy's overseas events. Each told a piece of a puzzle that prosecutors pieced together meticulously. The verdict didn't come from guesswork. It came from patterns of fear, threats, manipulation, and silence. The judge called it the most organized personal criminal system I've ever seen from someone outside a cartel. The jury, visibly shaken, returned the sentence in under 4 hours. Life in prison, no parole. But this wasn't just about crimes. It was about structure, about how something so insidious could be maintained so efficiently for so long. The FBI had uncovered what they labeled a corporate criminal enterprise, operating under the facade of a music label. Assistants weren't just employees, they were handlers. Bodyguards weren't for protection, they were enforcers. Flight logs showed people being transported under fake identities. Financial records showed lavish parties funded by shell companies. Properties across 4 states were used to host illegal events. Cameras were hidden in bedrooms, footage stored on encrypted servers. Devices were routinely destroyed after events. One ex-employee, now in witness protection, told agents he once had to dispose of a suitcase full of broken phones. He asked no questions. "That's the rule," he said. "If you ask, you disappear." Diddy had perfected the art of fear management. Guests were told they were lucky to be invited, yet forbidden from asking questions. Many were intoxicated before even realizing where they were. If anyone resisted, they were blacklisted. A former model testified she was locked in a room for 6 hours with no clothes until she agreed to cooperate. NDAs were handed out like candy, and those who breached them received threats. Some were paid off, others simply vanished. The scariest part? So many people knew. So many stayed silent. But the mountain finally collapsed. The evidence could no longer be buried, and the empire, built on fear and fame, was now nothing more than rubble in the federal courtroom. For the people closest to him, the emotional damage was irreversible. Diddy's mother, Janice, had once celebrated her son's Forbes cover, proudly calling him a role model for young black men across America. Now she sat in the front row, watching him declared a predator. She looked smaller than ever, her shoulders hunched, her eyes hollow. She clutched a handkerchief so tightly it tore at the seam. Diddy's twin daughters, only 18, were seen whispering prayers on day 4 of the trial. They came every day, hoping for a miracle, hoping the stories weren't true. But as evidence piled up, videos, testimonies, messages, their silence deepened. On the day the surveillance footage from room 603 was played, Delilah ran out sobbing. Jesse followed moments later, their faces pale, their worlds shattered. No daughter should have to hear such things about her father. At one point, a courtroom artist caught a moment where Delilah looked at her father and then turned away, her lips trembling. "I don't know who that is," she was overheard saying. Diddy's other children, once proud to be part of his empire, left the courthouse without speaking to reporters. Inside the courtroom, his longtime aide whispered, "He had everything. He lost it all." The people who had been his biggest supporters were now his quietest mourners. They weren't mourning a death. They were mourning a deception. Years spent loving someone they didn't truly know. For them, this trial wasn't just about law. It was a funeral of belief, and that pain would last a lifetime. During the trial, one name hovered like a ghost over every proceeding: Kim Porter. Diddy's former partner and the mother of 3 of his children, Kim had died suddenly in 2018. The cause? Pneumonia, they said. But even then, whispers had circulated. Something didn't sit right. And in this courtroom, those whispers turned into shouts. A leaked email showed that a request for a yellow coffin had been made 2 months before her death. Porter's close friends testified she was in good health days before she passed. Her phone and laptop were missing from the scene. One FBI investigator admitted on record, too many inconsistencies. A masseuse who had seen Kim hours before her death tried to testify, but was blocked due to safety concerns. Still, the courtroom felt the chill. Cassie Ventura referenced Kim in her testimony. "She wanted to leave," Cassie said. "She told me she was scared. She was trying to get out." Another witness, a former stylist, claimed Kim had started keeping backup copies of documents in a locker. That locker was emptied the day after her death. It was never recovered. When Quincy Brown, Kim's son, was mentioned during closing arguments, the room went silent. He had not attended the trial. A family friend said, "Quincy can't bear to be here. It's too much. He's grieving all over again." The judge allowed the mention of Kim's death, but stopped short of calling it foul play. Still, the implication hung in the air. Was Kim Porter another casualty of the empire? The collapse of Diddy's empire was fast and brutal. Within hours of the verdict, federal agents had frozen assets. His homes in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York were seized. Inside, investigators found safes, flash drives, handwritten notes. One mansion had a secret basement with soundproofing, clearly not for music. Over 60 civil claims were filed almost overnight. Victims from as far back as the 1990s came forward. Some were dismissed in the past as liars. Now, they were believed. Ciroc Vodka, Shawn John, and Carac Spirits all cut ties. Howard University revoked his honorary doctorate. BT removed his name from the Lifetime Achievement Award. MTV pulled archived performances. Spotify dropped him from playlists. Apple Music issued a statement distancing itself from his catalog. His estimated $900 million net worth dropped below $100 million in a week. Worse still, much of it was earmarked for lawsuits. One financial analyst told CNN, "He's broke in every way that matters now, socially, legally, morally." Diddy's longtime lawyer refused to confirm whether he would stay on the case. His legal defense team splintered. People who once praised him now avoided his name. The fall was complete. What was once a global brand had become a cautionary tale. There was no coming back from this. Social media went into a frenzy. Old interviews were unearthed, where celebrities hinted at weird parties or vibes around Diddy. A 2010 clip of a rapper saying, "If you party with Diddy, you don't know where you'll wake up," went viral. Reddit exploded with theories. Threads mapped out timelines, connected dots, tracked properties. A document called Diddy's Black Book began circulating. Alleged code names, dates, victims. Whether authentic or not, it reflected the public's hunger for truth. TikTok creators made timeline videos, some racking up millions of views. Podcasts devoted entire episodes to dissecting the trial. Journalists whispered that other names were about to drop. This wasn't just a Diddy scandal, it was a cultural reckoning. People began asking deeper questions. Who knew? Who helped? Who stayed silent? One journalist tweeted, "We covered for him." We all did. Fans removed tattoos. Former collaborators deleted old photos. For years, Diddy was the face of confidence and dominance. Now he was the face of disgrace. Influencers who once bragged about meeting him now issued apologies. It wasn't just the fall of a man. It was the unraveling of a myth. In the end, the courtroom wasn't just a place of justice. It became a stage where an entire generation was forced to confront what it had once idolized. Cassie Ventura didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She walked out of that courtroom quietly, her face blank, her hands trembling. No security, no entourage, just silence. She had said her truth, and it had changed everything. Diddy didn't just lose his case, he lost his legacy. His fall was a symbol that fame does not shield evil, that wealth cannot silence truth. The industry has a lot to answer for. Labels, brands, executives, all those who turned away. But justice, even delayed, had finally caught up. The courtroom emptied. Reporters filed stories, protesters outside chanted, and one woman, once a victim, walked away free. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning.